see the screen. All right. So as I said, if you have time, you have the means, try to get a book. At least every church should get one or a copy of this book to guide the church members in the subject. We looked into the New Testament and the Old Testament, and we found the uses of jewelry. In the Old Testament, we found at least 8 of them. And then in the New Testament, we found 6 uses. In the Old, we saw that jewelry was used as adornment. And also in the New Testament, we saw as adornment. Both in the Old and in the New, jewelry is used as currency, form of money. We also found out that both in the New and in the Old, jewelry is also used as evidence of wealth. In both testaments, used as symbol of social status. In both testaments, symbol of power and authority. In both testaments, jewelry is also used as a form of offering. However, there were 2 additional functions in the Old Testament which are not in the New. Jewelry as magical and then as religious function. When we look into the Bible, we understood that both in the Old and in the New Testament, God rejects, or both testaments reject entirely, with judgment, the use of jewelry as an adornment. So we have to be very careful about this. God never approved jewelry to be used as an adornment in the scriptures. When we come to even the high priest, the primary function wasn't for adornment. It was symbol of social status. We can also see that it was also a symbol of authority or power. So it never. However, every jewelry, whether as an evidence of wealth or for social status, also a kind of self-adornment purpose. So we have to be very careful. The Old Testament rejects entirely the use of jewelry as a magical function or religious function, entirely. The rest of the 5, the Old and the New Testament do not recommend. This is very important. The Bible doesn't prescribe or recommend, but it never scorned it or rejected it. Both as looking at as currency, wealth, social status, kings and queens use it, symbol of power and authority. We have the signet ring, like the signet ring of King Ahasuerus that was given to Mordecai. It was first, Mordecai, it was given to Mordecai. So we have these examples, and then we can also even think of Abraham's ring. The ring that was given to Rebecca by the well. It was a form of currency. So sometimes they wear it. For example, Rebecca, for example, wore her ring in her nose. So maybe they also showcase their wealth by wearing it. The Bible never scorned it or rejected it. Neither did it prescribe or recommend it, which means if we are going by the Bible, we have to be very careful. But before we go any further, let us pray. Father Divine, today as we seek to draw implication from what we have studied thus far, we ask that your Holy Spirit will guide and will lead us. Be with me, your Son, Lord. Help me be able to sound understandable to my audience, O Lord. guide my tongue, be able to speak for them to understand. I pray that, Lord, you bless the church by giving us understanding spirit and help us to be able to take decided decision on this subject and to know what to do and when to do what. We bless you for answered prayer in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay, so for tonight, we seek to draw implications from what we have studied so far. And so what is the question we have to find? Having studied all this, the Bible allows it, doesn't allow this, and so what? How do we apply it? How does it apply to my Christian life, to my walk with Jesus? That is what we are looking at. So to remind you, this is Bible studies. And so just keep your questions, and afterwards, you will ask them and then you bring your contribution. Remember, before we started the lesson, we had a working definition of what jewelry is. We define jewelry for this program as ornaments that are made of different materials. This is very important. The idea that jewelries are made of different materials. It can be gold, it can be wood, it can be plastic. It can be any material you can think of. So ornaments made of different materials with different functions. We have looked at the functions in the Bible, and that can be placed directly on the body or on the garment of a person in order to enhance the appearance of the individual. So it can be on the body direct, like you pierce your ears, you put in earrings, that is directly on the body. If you have brooches in your garment, you have cufflinks in your garment, you have tie clip in your tie, this is in the garment, yeah. And then some of the purposes is to enhance the appearance of the individual, to establish social distinctions as we've looked at, and to communicate personal convictions. By all means, whenever you put on jewelry, it is communicate some conviction. You have a reason for putting it on. This is very important. There is always a reason for putting on or wearing a particular jewelry. There's nobody who puts on jewelry without any reason. So that is very important. And we take the Google definition for ornament as a thing used to make something look more attractive, but in and of itself has no practical purpose. Very important. So we understand jewelry is not only about gold, silver, and gold, anything we can think of. Now, we also understood from the church manual that the church manual's position is by following how the Bible treats the subject of jewelry. We have to be very careful in drawing these conclusions. And the church manual was also careful to make sure that it recognizes how the Bible uses jewelry. The Bible recognizes cultural differences. You will have to, if you were following closely, for example, when Abraham's servant got to Rebekah's home, we saw culture played a role. Why did he put the ring in Rebekah's nose as a form of payment? Why did he give Rebekah this kind of jewelry as a bride gift? The first was for payment, but when he went home, after they had allowed Rebekah to go with him, he paid the bride price in forms of jewelry. So definitely we can say that he didn't follow the culture of the land or of the place. That is very important. So the church manual recognizes that aspect of the Bible's teaching on jewelry. So while recognizing cultural differences, our dress is to be simple, modest, and neat, befitting those whose true beauty does not consist of outward adornment, but in the imperishable ornament of a gentle and quiet spirit. This is very important, because when you go to Ghana, you know, when we come here, we wear a pair of trousers. Women and ladies wear a pair of trousers. I remember in Ghana, if you're Adventist woman or whoever, you don't take care of the kind of dress that you put on, people will even tell you and quote scriptures that the Bible says women shouldn't wear trousers, which the Bible doesn't say that. The Bible says women shouldn't wear things that pertain to men, nor men dress that pertain to women. What I'm saying is, when you come over here, for a woman to wear trousers is culturally normal. There is no problem with it. But when you go to Ghana, you have to respect the cultural differences. We can, in the same way, think about this. Cultural differences play roles here. That is what the Sabbath, our belief number 22 tries to recognize. And then the manual also recognize, when I say the manual, this is the church's position. It also recognizes that the Bible does not accept Christians to wear ornamental jewelry. And so it says, it is clearly taught in the scriptures that the wearing of jewelry is contrary to the will of God. In this case, jewelry as an adornment, because they could not with braided hair or gold or costly array. Quoting 1 Timothy 2 now, as we have looked at this week, is the admonition of the Apostle Paul. So we understand, just as we have studied this week, that according to Paul and Peter, we don't have to wear ornamental jewelry. Very important. Now, it continues to say that the wearing of ornaments of jewelry is a bid for attention, which is not in keeping with Christian self-forgetfulness. When we are called as Christians, we are to crucify self. We are to forget ourselves, take up our cross and follow Jesus Christ. When we wear these ornaments just to attract or call attention to ourselves, it is against that principle of self-forgetfulness. And so Christians cannot use ornamental jewelry. And then the manual quotes Ellen White, one of her books to support Testimonies to the Church, volume 3, page 366. To dress plainly, abstaining from display of jewelry and ornaments of every kind. I like the way she says it, ornaments of every kind. So, we have been trying to find a way through it or whatever, but we have to be true to the word and to what Ellen White says. Ornaments of every kind. Abstaining from them is in keeping with our faith. It's in keeping with our faith. Now, we notice that in the church manual, there is exception in accordance with the recognition of cultural differences. That in some cultures, in some countries, the wedding band or the wedding ring is regarded as a criterion of virtue. Married couples are required to put on wedding band or wedding ring in order for them to be recognized as married. In that case, the manual, which is what the church stands on, or that is the position of the church now, accepts that in that case, if the individuals want to use it, there is no problem. Here is where we have to be very careful. The manual is not recommending, but the manual just allows it. Doesn't prescribe, doesn't recommend, but it allows it. So we have to be careful. What does it mean? So if somebody's wearing a wedding ring, you have to be very careful. You have to be very careful. Because if the person believes that it is required in his or her society, in her culture, as married couples to put on wedding rings, there is no problem with that. We shouldn't have problem with that. Don't let us extend and overextend this I'll come to that. Okay, so let's look at something. The Bible, okay, it is actually the Bible and the church's standard on jewelry. The Adventist standard on jewelry, it rejects ornamental jewelry, while at the same time recognizing that there is such a thing as functional jewelry, and that using functional jewelry is not necessarily a violation of the standard. That is what we have just looked at. So according to the Bible, the Bible does not reject functional jewelry. We look at them. The Bible doesn't recommend functional jewelry. The Bible doesn't reject functional jewelry. The Bible doesn't prescribe functional jewelry, but the Bible doesn't scorn it. It allows it. Very important. I've tried to put it in so many other ways of getting it. The Bible allows it. So the church wants to go by what the Bible, how the Bible treats it. That is why the church say, okay, as a church, let us treat it just as the Bible treats it. The Bible allows functional jewelry. The Bible allows signet ring. The Bible allows, let me put it, wedding ring, because in the case of Rebecca's situation, there's no way to explain that away. The Bible allows wedding ring. So let us allow, so all these are functional. The Bible allows kings and queens to put on crown, the king's crown, the king's bracelet. So the Bible allows these things. So let us allow it, or let us treat it just as the Bible treats it. So all these are functional jewelry. So the church says it recognizes functional jewelry, though it does not prescribe it. It does not enforce it. It does not suggest it, but we allow it. However, both in the Old and in the New Testament, ornamental jewelry, jewelry that is worn for personal adornment or enhancement, to enhance our appearance or our beauty, the Bible in both testaments rejects them. So the church, we also reject that one. And so following the scriptures, the church rejects the ornamental aspect of jewelry and considered it to be inappropriate for Christians. Ornamental jewelry usually, but not exclusively, takes the form of earrings, nose rings, bracelets, rings, necklaces, anklets worn to enhance the appearance of the individual. So there is a line that a functional jewelry can cross and then become ornamental jewelry, but we will come to that. And so in 1972 General Conference Annual Council, in the document they published Action on Display and Adornment. I think we look at it the first day. They recognize that in the area of personal adornment, as we are talking, necklaces, earrings, bracelets, jewel, and other ornamental rings should not be worn. So you don't wear a ring for ornamental purposes. You don't put on necklaces for ornamental purposes, earrings, bracelets, and stuff like that. However, there are some jewelries that can be a form of ornamental. When we say they are ornamental, they are functional, but whatever be, they also serve as a form of ornament. For example, we buy a watch in order to check the time, right? Whether you like it or not, whenever you put on watch, it's functional to help you read the time. But you can't say that it doesn't also serve ornamental purpose. When you buy brooches just to hold some pieces of garment together, no matter what, it also serves as ornamental purpose. But that is not the primary reason. If that's the primary reason, then you wouldn't do it. Then you go against the principle. Cufflinks, the primary reason is to hold together the curves. This is very important. Now, when it comes to this functional jewelry or even ornamental jewelry, as this kind of functional jewelry, the guideline should be simplicity, modesty, and economy. We will come to that. How do I even select a wedding band? If you are buying a wedding band, you have to follow the principle of simplicity, modesty, and economy. When I'm buying a brooch, cuffling, watches, I need to follow the principle of simplicity, modesty, and economy. So, the standard on jewelry, in brief, rejects ornamental jewelry whilst allowing restrictive use of functional jewelry. I'm trying to repeat this so that we come to understand. It rejects totally ornamental jewelry. It allows restrictive use of functional jewelry. That is the standard. So if you didn't get anything from this study time of all this week, get this. What is the Adventist standard on jewelry? Oh, the church rejects all ornamental jewelry, but allows a restrictive use or a limited use of functional jewelry. I hope everyone gets it. Don't forget this. Asore no jewelry ayede ehema ye ho siesie ho se ho be fe de ye njintum. Na mom jewelry a ewo botaye bi a edi dwuma bi te se bi a aware ebi a mede bo matade ma na gina asore no ema ho kwan na mom owon hyehyeye wo ho sa na kire asore no ma no nom ho kwan na nso hyehyeye wo ho. So the standard is rejection of ornamental jewelry, restrictive use of functional jewelry. Now, the principle is the nsheshaya. What are the principles that guide how I select my wedding band? What is the principle that guides how I buy my cufflinks, how I select my brooches and stuff like that? The principles are simplicity, modesty, and economy. We will come to that. And so these principles, when you look into the Bible, they transcend time and culture. They from the beginning to the end, when Christ will come, they do apply. So the principles of simplicity, modesty, economy, and the standard of rejection of ornamental jewelry and restrictive use of functional jewelry transcends time and culture. This is not for only people in the Old Testament, nor the people of the New Testament time. It applies to us and beyond until Christ comes, according to how the Bible deals with the subject. In allowing a limited use of functional jewelry, as we have looked at, the church is following the biblical position. Please, this is one of the challenges you come across when you are studying the Bible. If you want to lay down or table your biases, your presuppositions, I come to this. I have my own biases. Left to me alone, probably we shouldn't wear even wedding ring. Left to me alone, we shouldn't even entertain perhaps even people who wear rings. Or left to you alone, maybe people who wear some other rings or put on earrings, stuff like that, should be even out of the church. But when we come to the Bible and we want to study the Bible with open mind, we need to table our presupposition. We have to just lay down our biases and then go by what does the Bible say. So the church, according to the church, by following this standard and principles, they see, or we see, that that is how we have to go by it if we want to say we are people of the word. However, there's a question that we need to answer. The question is, okay, the church allows functional jewelry. At what point, or how do we define functional jewelry? And at what point does it become ornamental jewelry? Because we can be true to ourselves that wedding band is a wedding band, but there are differences. Which wedding band should I buy in order to be simple, modest, and economy? So the church has to deal with that problem. And sometimes some of the answer here is that we should leave it for the culture to decide. If it is regarded by this culture as functional or and up to the standard, it's okay. Sometimes that is the answer. But will that solve the problem? Is still another question we have to answer. So we notice that with even the use of functional jewelry, unless the heart is fully committed to God, committed to Christ, we can cross the line. And then the wedding band becomes ornamental jewelry. We have to be very careful. And so the principles that probably will help is what we have mentioned. When we talk about simplicity, when I'm going to buy a wedding band, when I am adorning my hair or putting on clothing, whatever, we have to follow these principles. Simplicity, trying to get some meaning from the Bible, consists of an undivided commitment to a single purpose. That is the service of God. When we talk about simplicity, I think we have used it. When we are fully committed, give ourselves unreservedly to the Lord and his will. Single-mindedness is simplicity. I hope we get it. We are for the Lord. Nothing can separate us from the Lord. It is characterized by the absence of ambiguous behavior or duplicity. I am for the Lord alone. I am for the Lord alone. Something attracted the attention of Eve. That is duplicity. And so her attention was divided. That is duplicity. But if we are for the Lord alone, our minds are changed by his word. For Christ and for him alone, that is simplicity. So when we bring this into our selection of functional jewelry, it must reveal that the center of our lives is in our commitment to Christ and not in a self-serving display of ostentatious ornaments. We are for Christ and his will alone. And so we don't have to allow pride or self-serving to be revealed in how we dress. Whenever we are so ostentatious, so superfluous in how we dress, it means that pride has set in. That is against the principle of simplicity. The other principle is modesty. This one, Paul talked about it, and it means self-respect. Self-respect, determined by one's claim to be living a life pleasing to the Lord. When you say you are living a life pleasing to the Lord, you are a Christian. Self-respect. Modest functional jewelry avoids extremes and excesses of display and is loyal to the Christian parameters of personal propriety. Avoiding excesses and extremes of display is what is termed as modesty. Economy, we say it is very difficult to define because when we talk about what is economical, it varies from person to person. What or something that is expensive today may be inexpensive tomorrow. And something that is inexpensive today may turn out to be expensive tomorrow. So we have to be very careful when we're dealing with economy. And thankfully enough, none of the Bible passages emphasized economy. They never emphasized economy. The emphasis was on simplicity and modesty. So a guiding principle here is when it comes to economy, maybe we have to bear in mind that we are stewards of the financial resources that have been given to us, and we are accountable to God for them. So when you are selecting, make sure or just call to mind the Bible's guidelines on financial stewardship or stewardship of the resources that God has given to us, and the fact that each and every one of us will give account to God. Let's remember that the Bible teaches God has given us these things, this gift, this money, to be able to help the needy. So when we are selecting a piece of jewelry for our functional purpose, by economy, we have to consider whether we are fulfilling that role. And so these are some words of caution, because we can be legalistic. And some of us sometimes can be angry at others or with others who wear jewelry which we don't subscribe to the point that we may want to maybe give a list of what to wear and what not to wear. So we have to be very careful as a church. In the case of jewelry, a legalistic removal of ornamental jewelry destroys the very intent of the standard. We're talking about guarding against legalism. Legalism is when we seek to please God by our obedience, when we seek to earn our salvation by obedience or by our good works. And so, if I remove my ornamental jewelry and then I use a very simple, modest, and economical functional jewelry, if it has to do with legalism, thinking that by so doing, I will win the favor of God and I will be saved, by thinking that it is by that I earn my salvation, then it destroys that purpose. Because instead of self-denial and humility, it leads to selfishness and pride. This is very important. So there's a thin line between obedience and legalism. Very thin line between obedience and legalism. We have to be very careful to guard against, not only with regard to jewelry, but as far as every other requirement of God is concerned. Legalism always is accompanied by a judgmental attitude. What I mean by this is when people don't do things the way you do it, you might think you are the best, they are the worst. That is judgmental attitude. We are for God, they are not for God. That is judgmental attitude. Our obedience is an offering of love to God. Whether you put on jewelry or not is how you have understood it and how you express love to Christ for what he has done for you. So whenever I obey God in anything, whether not stealing, not fornicating, it is an offering of love to God. I'm saying, Lord, I love you so much for what you have done for me. This is my appreciation. And so love to God, and then he does not expect us to compare. When we are offering love to God, God does not expect us to compare ourselves to with others, or compare us to, doesn't expect us to compare what we bring to him with what other human beings are offering him. Different people are offering Jesus different things. It's not your concern to think about what people are giving to Jesus. It's not your concern to estimate what people are giving to God. It's not your concern to quantify the value of the offering people are giving to God. Your concern is yours alone. How I have understood my God, and how I have understood his love for me, and what is my offering of love to him. In that case, this is a good Christian lifestyle that helps you to practice good Christianity. You don't compare yourself with others. I don't care what somebody gives to Jesus. I don't care how somebody obeys or not. I understand him this way, and I return this offering of love. I obey him this way. That is what God requires from each one of us. Whenever we try to assist others in their Christian experience, it must be done in love and not in condemnation and rejection. Whenever we want to help people to put off their jewelry, to remove their rings or whatsoever, we have to do that in the spirit of love, not in condemnation and rejection. We help them to understand and to be willingly remove them. No one should expect the church to decide for its members what is modest and economical car, a modest house, or a simple watch. This is very important. Please, you don't tell a church member that you remove your golden watch, so they have to remove their golden watch. Because we are individuals. This has to do with Christian maturity. It has to do with our day-to-day relationship with God. It has to do with spiritual maturity. So you never tell church members, I don't wear cufflinks, so you don't wear cufflinks. That is up to the church member. I wear smaller cufflinks, so you have to wear smaller cufflinks. Ours is to teach. And then we should allow the church members to use Christian maturity, spiritual growth, to be able to decide for themselves how they select their functional jewelry. Allow the church member to use discretion and spiritual maturity to buy the model or the type of car he or she wants, type of house he or she wants, type of watch, mobile phone, whatever. No prescription here. Those are areas where the church should only teach the Christian principles and challenge. This is very important. We challenge members. We don't leave them like that, but we challenge them by the grace of God. You can do it. By the grace of God, we can live to God's principles. We can embrace the truth. So whenever we preach, whenever we make an altar call, it's a challenge, saying that by the grace of God, you can make it. You can submit your heart to Christ. So we challenge members to use the principles as they make personal decisions in their daily life. And say, and then my camera for kakra, I think say, yeah, pa. Enti, here. So this is a summary of what I think we can draw from what we have done so far. I'm going to stop sharing and then we will discuss. Thank you. Can anybody hear me?
Yes, Pastor. Yes.
All right.
Okay, so this is the question period. So at this time, if anyone has questions, you can raise your hand and I will call on you. Yes, Edmonton, Ghanaian, Brazil.
I want to hear questions from the young people. Yeah.
Yeah, I just have a question. I know like sometimes it's common for not necessarily Adventists, but Christians who wear like necklaces with crosses on them or something that's like jewelry that has something to do with like Christ or whatever. Like, is that also unacceptable or is there like different standard for that?
Very, very good question. Very good question. So church, please let's help in answering these questions. What do you think? Some have necklaces of Christian symbols, stuff like that. What do you think about them? Yeah, so what's your name, please? I didn't see your name.
Oh, I'm Charlotte.
Yeah, Charlotte. Thank you for the question. And you know, different denominations have different ways of interpreting scriptures. And for what you know, most churches explain away from the truth, just as we have done. Something that the Bible is allowing moderate use of all jewelry, which we as Adventists, looking into the whole Bible, believe that that is not the interpretation of the scriptures. So they don't see anything wrong with putting on any jewelry at all. So that is one of the reasons. And so we, first of all, as soon as you see anybody of different church, I'm not talking about Adventist church, but any other church, let that come to your mind. They don't believe in the way we explain the scriptures. They say, no, the Bible is allowing moderate use of it, so no problem. So we don't subscribe to that interpretation, that aspect. And then the second point is that, do you know that we learn this even from Roman Catholic and Methodist? The Adventists inherited this tradition. It'll surprise you. Catholics and Methodists were not wearing jewelry from the beginning, because they understood from the scriptures. Why did they understand from the scriptures? When you study the church history, after Jesus' death, early centuries, 5th centuries, all the church fathers, they talk about it strongly. If you look at the history of the church fathers and their writings about jewelry, they all emphasize, they all explain the way we are explaining. And so the church was not wearing jewelry. That's why Catholic was not wearing jewelry. Methodist was not wearing jewelry. But as time goes by, this permissiveness came in. Oh, let's allow, okay, this is functional jewelry. This is that. This is that. And so eventually, it comes to a point that who will decide for another person whether that is functional or not. So that is one point. That's another point. So my fears here is, because of the human heart that is so susceptible to pride and sin, we stand the risk of also losing it, just as they lost it. The more we emphasize functional jewelry, the more we're going to lose that value. That's why we have to say just as the Bible says. The Bible doesn't prescribe it, but it allows it. So it's up to the individual. Now, the danger we are facing is, now, if a Seventh Day Adventist church says that my necklace or my bracelet is my symbol of my commitment in marriage, how do you answer that question? Okay, let me just pause here. Did I answer your question, Charlotte?
Yes, you did. Thank you.
All right.
And sorry, Joanne, I see your hand up. I just want to interject and just share my own personal story, going to what Pastor just said. It's interesting because we focus on wedding rings and so forth. If we're to be honest with ourselves, what most people wear today, especially women, are engagement rings. They're not the wedding bands. If you don't believe me, just go to any jewelry shop. Ask them for a wedding band, and it is the simple one, the ones that do not have any like ornaments on it. And you know, prior to marriage, that was something that was very clear. But the society we live in is like, oh no, I want that, the one with, you know, the ostentatious one, the one with the diamond and the blinging and so forth. Those of you that are not yet married, right, a wedding band will only cost you about $500 or less.
Do you mean that?
So Charlotte,
What,
sure,
did you say $500
or less? It's just a band, because it's just a band, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Charlotte, going back to telling you something. So for me, I don't know how many of you like, so I recently, because I used to wear a wedding, like a ring, and I banded my band and my ring together, and I actually lost it. But so while we were dating,
yeah.
I have a bracelet that my husband inscribed a Bible text in it, and that bracelet really meant a lot to me. So I found myself that after I lost my wedding ring, I started wearing the bracelet. because to me personally, I was like, oh, that's something he gave me, like, you know, like, and it has like a special inscription, so it means a lot. And I was battling with, do we replace the wedding ring or do I just go and wear the bracelet? Now I don't wear the bracelet at all because I recognize that I was deceiving myself. At the end of the day, if it's a representation of our marriage, and I'm just saying this is my conviction and my belief with respect to wedding rings.
Yeah.
What is the functional purpose of a wedding ring? So people know that I'm married. The question that follows naturally after that is why? Who cares? Who cares, right? So with a lot of these jewelry and ornaments, I think we need to internalize and be honest with ourselves, especially the ones that we say is for a functional purpose, like a brooch or like I mentioned, Pastor, before, like cufflinks. Just buy a shirt with buttons at the end of it, and it serves the same function. We have to admit it's for the flashiness or to fit into this worldly society that God tells us to clearly stand apart from, right? Because now that I don't wear my wedding ring, I actually get more questions at work. Oh, we thought you were married. And I'm like, yes, I am. You get what I mean? So it's interesting. So I just wanted to share that as well, Charlotte.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay. Any thought on what we heard, the conclusion, and anything bothering you, contribution, whatever?
Hey, Pastor, may I question be a person Busa? Boni bia ye bone. Yeni kitwa. Yeni kesiye. It is a Bible can say, jewelry is name. Why I didn't maybe a
Hono adentino hono katia mante hono.
I didn't know you categorize it as be a functional. Because then eventually it's even the church encouraging.
Okay.
Because nipa dia wo catch nipa say with me we kakra. Ube say na so aye bebre.
Yeah.
A spade is a spade. Nti adenti na ye ngo ye makwan maybe a functional. Nti ase kakra.
You make us say ubi enya point no. Actually, can anybody help? That's a Mama Joanna. Okay. And the point is, Mama Joanna, Bible no na amaye who say it be a functional jewelry. And yet, and I make us say, some medio jammy, I make us say, my and shakra, I might just say, ye wouldn't cry home. But say, Opa so go by the Bible now. Or so do biases in a go. And that is what this Bible studies we are trying to do. Bible no, you who say, or recognize say, or hene share a henche, any a hem for human bracelets. Bible no, en kase enye. Enye Bible no ne kase or monshedi, but on kase enye. And the Bible recognizes it. And that serves as a functional purpose. Bible no I recognize it. A functional serving as a distinguishing in the social status, authority. Bible chrono a signet ring. Na omode show monsa omo actual letter na omode team no. The Bible recognizes it. And na unhuni say a ornamental purpose. A functional. Bible chrono no Abraham oko fire man the banana or the jewelry ama as bride with. However, baby who say or share jewelry no mum dear a woman said na a bra na we use soon as money. Bro or ma you money in soon no ye na or ma aquano in soon ye na or de sa nose ring in the share ho. Away ye the may who say money and say the weight, which was the money. So it helps us to know said, yeah, that might be a pagan society, but at least Eliezer recognized the culture of the land. That is very important. And yehu woman say Bible doesn't discredit functional jewelry. It doesn't allow or recommend it, but it doesn't reject it. Nti yɛn nso yɛ apply a ɛwɔ sɛ yɛfa ne sɛnea Bible no ayɛ aka no no. We don't recommend it. We don't prescribe it, but we don't scorn at it. So obi hyɛ na ogyidi sɛ that functional purpose for that purpose our ka ho asɛm. Particularly as you say a very a marriage band. Ma yɛne nipa no enya haw bia. Enti it is not us, it is by going by the word. But near hunu say, just as the Roman Catholic lost that value, the Methodists have lost it. I think sometimes I read somewhere a Methodist saying say, gradually Adventists are also allowing wedding band, and gradually we're also going to lose it. And why do we lose it? Because we always want to cross the line. We always want to make it ornamental, a little permissiveness. So if we are going to go by just as the Bible says, I don't think we are going to have problem, but the human tendency is what always brings a problem. And I must be honest, if we don't keep on teaching it this way, and then we keep quiet, eventually we are going to lose it. Yeah. Nti mama, minim se matumi aboa kakra.
That's it.
Yeah. Any other question, contribution? You. And yeah, mami misa obia say no me person me who say our young people really understand what we are doing. Do you know say soldier for ewo brooch be a insignia be in a form of brooch or mother ball moha? Mo hu bibisa.
Yeah.
So is it functional or ornamental? Let me ask. I want to ask our young people, not the adults. What do you think? The soldier's insignia, is it somebody said functional? Do we agree with that? Who chat them obi say a functional. Anybody who agrees with that? And what does that actually mean? That insignia, what does it mean?
It's functional.
Okay. It's functional. Okay. Do you have any reason for that? Okay, somebody has given a reason. It determines what rank and squad you are in. So do we all agree it's functional? It's functional. I think say AY Quran, so there were some functional brooches visa meboa.
Yeah, like the pins you get for your class. I think.
Okay. So we understand they are hot. Functional. Okay, how about
Also, can I give one?
come again?
Can I give one that I'm
Sure.
curious about?
Sure.
What about a necklace that a necklace that has some sentimental value to someone? So a necklace that let's say I'm an Adventist. I recently joined the church, but this is a necklace that my grandmother passed to my mother, and my mother gave me, and it has some sentimental value to me. Can sentimental value be equated to something that's functional? Just curious.
What do you think on the basis of what we have studied all throughout the week?
I don't think so. for the simple fact that, and the one example when we talk about, like, necklaces and rings with sentimental value, the one example that comes to my mind is the Catholic rosaries. I have a lot of friends that are Catholic. They just put it in their pockets, like it's on their person, but they're not. I don't know if it made like it's in their pocket or it's in their car, or you know what I mean. And they take it out to do whatever the functional purpose of it is, right? So for me, knowing how, I mean, I think most of us would be like, okay, maybe it's, if we were Catholic, it's okay to wear a rosary. There's a clear functional, you know what I mean, purpose for that one. But even a lot of Catholics that I know, they have it on their person without wearing it. So Godwin, to answer your question, I personally think that something of sentimental value, whether it's a ring or a necklace or whatever, if you want it on your person, you could some people have pictures of their family and their wallets and so forth, right? It's just the display aspect, and that's, I actually believe it's the display aspect that makes it like the jewelry for, sorry, what's the term that we use? I think personal ornament purpose or whatever it is.
Ornamental jewelry, yeah.
Yeah, but I could be
Yeah,
wrong.
I'm also okay. Anybody wants to help? Thank you. Yeah, that may be along similar line of reasoning. Because anybody can give any ornament to you just to indicate that they like you. I mean, somebody you like your grandma, your daddy can give you maybe a necklace, ring, whatever, for whatever reason. But I think it doesn't fulfill the functional aspect the way the Bible looks at it. I am rather considering, because, for example, some even give some of necklaces to their loved ones because they think it will protect them. It has some spiritual power, whatever, to protect them. And it's because they love them. That's why they are giving to them. So it's all along that line. And I don't think it's more of that functional. Along that line, the Bible, the most common one we can compare is has to do with the daughters of Zion. So that one, I don't think it's that fun. I thought you were going to say, if somebody is wearing a necklace and then the person says that is given to her or him during wedding or is for their marriage commitment, how about that?
That's a good one. I'm interested in responses.
Yeah, I want to hear from you. I want to hear from the church. As a matter of fact, that is where I am confused. And so that is why I'm saying that the way we are looking at a subject, unless we keep teaching, that is the only way. If we don't keep teaching, eventually we are going to lose the battle. Because perhaps the last you want to see is to see somebody wearing necklace and then earrings to church. How about if the person says it's my it's a symbol of my wedding commitment? Then everything is gone, because apart from necklace, apart from earring, what else? So what do you think? Let's hear from you.
Pastor, I think, sir, for me, it's not functional, because I think, sir, there's an intent. If you know the basic systems that you use for that, like the ring or whatever, but if you're going to earrings, you're turning into like necklace and stuff, I think, sir, there's a purpose behind it, in the sense that it's intentionally doing it in a way to be able to allow you to be able to wear the earrings, allow you to be able to do specific things. I think that is my it means that there's an intent behind it.
So I think these are some of the reasons why some churches are not even teaching it, because sometimes it's confusing. Yeah, but we have to be very careful when we are applying the Bible principle or the standard. We have to be very careful. Yeah. Thank you.
So I'm a bit, I guess maybe I'm sort of like Auntie Ajua.
Mhm.
When she's like, it's a bit confusing. Like, if it's easier if we are able to say no, yes, the Bible condemns it, so we don't wear it. And I like, Pastor, what you're saying about teaching, but I'm just using this as an example. As a young man or a young woman dating in Christ and in the Lord, I would be a bit perplexed why a Seventh-day Adventist guy would give a necklace like as a symbol. I mean, to me, that speaks more to the choices we are making in our dating partners and how maybe we don't share the same values. Right. So to me, that's like a more deeper question. And which brings me to maybe my anxiety, or with respect to like something like what Auntie Ajua is saying. It's like, if it's dangerous that we want to be like, oh, functional purpose and stuff like this. But then again, I guess that's where um the I believe you called it the principle.
That is the standard.
Sorry, the standard comes in.
Yeah.
The simplicity, the
Yeah. That is
modesty,
yeah, the
and then
principle. Yeah, those are the principles.
yeah,
Simplicity, modesty, economy.
exactly. Maybe
Principle.
that's where it should that's where maybe the focus should be more often, because Enra Diano Krano, I know between like me and my family, my brother included, one of the questions that I asked is, if we take away jewelry in itself, what are we saying about makeup? Clearly, it's to enhance ourselves.
Yeah. In fact,
Clearly.
if you look at it indirectly, we dealt with it. It's all part of adornment, because we saw Jezebel made the makeup was for adornment, just to entice Jehu. It didn't work. We saw in some other instances. Yeah.
Yeah,
God,
and then that's where I'm saying that's I think for the young people, that would be a really, especially young people growing up in today's society, that would be a really, really drastic change of mind and attitude. Why else would someone wear makeup except to adorn themselves?
yeah. So we dealt with makeup. It's all personal adornment that the Bible rejects it. So that's why we are saying the Bible doesn't reject adornment per se. But when Paul says that there are certain type of clothing, certain type of hairstyle, they are not rejecting dressing our hair or wearing clothing, but they are rejecting the type that they have in mind, which is too ostentatious and excessive. So if you I don't know how many women don't do makeup. It looks as if everybody, I don't know, I can't tell about you, but I mean, you should know how to do your makeup to remain a very good Christian. Who don't do makeup at all? I don't know.
So I have a question. With things like keychains and like for example, for me, I have something that hangs on the back of my backpack and things like that. Would that be in a category of ornamental jewelry or jewelry in general, or is that something else entirely? Because yeah, that's just my question.
It hangs at the back of your bag, right?
Yeah, like things that hang on the bags, or things like, for example, if someone had a necklace that they had passed down from their whatever, and they put it on like their bag, or they put it on whatever, would that be a part of ornamental jewelry?
Okay. I hope we will get the answers from the church.
No, I think our working definitions talked about it beautifying yourself.
Okay. We talk about beautifying ourselves. So maybe, thank you. The working definition says you can either attach it to a material, right? Or you put it on. So those it can be directly on the body, or maybe in a shirt, whatever. We have to be very careful. because let me pull the working definition because it helps. And guys, maybe somebody gave you the let me see the working definition. That definition is very important. So yeah, let me bring it up here, and then I think we have some time we can. Okay, let me bring it up here. Okay, can be placed directly on the body or on the garment of a person. Okay, on the garment. So I think it's not ornamental jewelry. If we are going by this definition, which I don't want to deviate from, on the garment, so if the bag is a garment, then I say yes. But if not, will be contrary view and anything to say about it, more you can share. But Sanyana Obi Kana, I don't know why, as for me, I'll even have a necklace or whatever in my pocket. What is that for? You see, I don't know why I'll hang. There are different types of chain, but for necklace, I don't know why I'll hang a necklace at the back of my bag. I don't know how, when, and how, and why.
I think so, Pastor. I think it's all about the mindset. The more I think about it, it's more about the mindset. Because the person says I can't put it on myself, I'm going to put on something that will be close to me so I can still have access to it, even though I can't put it on myself. So I think that it's also the mindset in the sense that what is the thought or the intent behind it.
Yeah. So that's why we're saying we can't decide. In some situations, we have to use our spiritual maturity to do certain things. And I believe there are things today you will do that tomorrow you will never do. The more you walk with Jesus and the deeper the relationship becomes, there are things you did yesterday you wouldn't do today. So we have to be careful in dealing with people with these issues. Yeah. Okay. And nneɛma bi wɔ hɔ a mepɛ sɛ mehu saa anyɛ hwee ɛno deɛ wɔ yɛ tirim ɛno wɔ tirim a ɛbɛboa paa nti ma membisa, what is the Adventist standard or position on jewelry? I want to hear from the young people. What is our standard on jewelry according to how we understand from the Bible? Anybody? To just the standard. I'm not talking about the principles.
So we have you, Kevin, we have William, we have all this, Joanna, you guys are all there, please.
Anything you heard. What is our standard on jewelry?
We say that we should have no jewels at all.
Come again.
We should have no jewels at all. Like
That's
no.
not the standard.
Okay, no, allow him. He has said something. No jewels at all. That's how he had how he has understood it. All right. Thank you, Ajimai. No jewels at all. Anybody with contrary view or wants to add to what he said? Thank you.
Noberta, William.
So in fact, Ajimai, you have said part of it, but it needs some qualification. What is the standard, Adventist standard?
Yeah, Pastor, that was Sinai. So I guess if I'm getting where the direction of the question, later on, based on traditions or norm of some people from Australia and later in America, others were permissible. So if that's what we want to add, by our initial position.
Okay, that is also part of it. So now it's becoming, we are adding up, and very soon it will be complete.
Also, like,
Yeah, go on.
functional jewelry is okay to be used if
Good.
in
Good. Good. You said part of it. Now we can put them all together. So from all the three, we get the standard. So that is why I was trying to summarize it. Rejection of every ornamental jewelry. Restrictive or limited use of functional jewelry. So the standard is the Adventist Church rejects all ornamental jewelry, but allows a limited use of functional jewelry. Because of the word limited or restricted, that is why we come to the principles. Why did we use limited or restrictive? That brings us to the principles. So what are the principles for selecting limited for selecting functional jewelry? What are the principles?
Simplicity, modesty, and economy.
Simplicity, modesty, and economy. So if you have the standard and the principles, they guide you. Okay, we reject every ornamental jewelry, just to jewelry, every other jewelry that we want to use to enhance our personal appearance, to beautify ourselves. And when we say, when we talk adornment in general, we have makeups coming in. Makeups are part of it. It was that that wizard, that adultery Jezebel, who introduced us in scripture to makeups. So we have to be very careful. All right. Yeah.
Right, go ahead.
Somebody's on. Okay, go ahead.
Pastor, I just had a question that's that I'm not quite settled on. So if we can talk down the idea of like a wedding ring being functional, like if we can talk it down to understand that it can actually just be something that we can forego, then is there anything really that an average person that doesn't require it for, let's say, like military purposes, is there anything that we can then justify as functional jewelry?
Okay, if I understood your question well, you really say that wedding bands are functional, which we accept, or?
Yeah, but
He's saying we can talk down on it. So where
Yeah.
we like it's not really functional, then can the same be applied to other things? So like the
Oh,
military,
okay, yeah. Okay, I get the question now. What do you think, Church?
I know I'm talking a lot, but Bright, if I may, Bright, I think it's in between. So I think the way, this is my personal view, the way I've understood the presentation thus far, the historical context really helped me because it was the culture of Australia. Like Elder Prince interjected and said, the culture of Australia, that's where the wedding band or wedding ring was permissible. I don't think you can say, I mean, that's the Guinean culture or that's the I don't know, Canadian culture or whatever. It's society, is the North American society of today. Pretty soon, next year, that society, like, it could be something else. I think the difference between that and the military stuff or Pathfinder or whatever, no, that one is, it's sort of like you're part of this organization, right? And it's clear that it is accepted in that entire organization that if you are in the French class, you get a blue pin. And you have to wear it on the flap of your thing to identify the fact that you have a blue, like, you just graduated from the French class. Yesterday, I believe, or the night before, Auntie Debbie gave the example of the Indians where they wore the ring or something like that on the necklace or something to that effect. That person, if if let's just say Joanna got married and was wearing a wedding ring and went into that culture, they wouldn't recognize the wedding ring on her finger as an indication that she is married. What they recognize there is the fact that they have some type of ring or whatever on their necklace. So that's what makes me think, I think generally all accepted, like the military uniforms and those things, I think that's universal wherever you go. Do you get what I mean? It identifies rank or whatever. But the other stuff, like the rings and stuff, I don't think that same thing applies. That's why it's easy for us to talk down on that. But I don't think we can talk down the functionality aspect with respect to the military uniforms.
Okay.
Or signet ring from King Charles.
All right. Yeah. Anybody with any other contribution? I think I agree with you. But the question I wanted to ask is, when do the military men even put on that insignia? Is it when they have their military costume on, or just anytime?
You only do that for special occasions. So they will only put all the military attire with those pins on only on special occasions. You will never see them walking around constantly with it on, unless there's a specific special occasions. Then they'll put those items on.
Yeah, so I think that by itself even helps in answering some of the questions, because they meet and then they want to know which ranks, as somebody said, what each and everyone can do. They use these things to identify themselves. So yeah, but probably it would be strange to see a soldier or a policeman wearing any shirt and then putting on those things. In that case, it ceases to perhaps be functional and then becomes ornament. Yeah.
Yeah, and Pastor, in addition to that also, I know some army, or most armies, they have a necklace. It's just a basic steel with their unit or name on it. So in the midst of war, if there are casualties, they can be identified. So
yeah,
stuff like that are simplicity, and it's also have a purpose.
Yeah. So we have to give respect to those things. And I think even the conscience will just this thing we are talking about, the conscience will even tell you. So if the heart is always for Christ, you just know that this one is good, this is not good. Yeah. So any other question, contribution? But so far, I think our young people here should be fine. Our adults as well should be fine. Don't.
I have a last question.
Okay.
And it's to you, Pastor, but it's really maybe to everybody.
Okay.
Can we say this is the Adventist standard when we go to other Adventist churches and we see people wearing jewelry? So
long as the church manual and the church is concerned, this is the Adventist standard. This is the standard. So that is why everything I'll share with you is the Adventist position. The book, that's why I didn't just use any other book. We have some Adventist scholars who have written books on it, but I used the book that is generally accepted and was published by the Ministerial Department of the General Conference. The positioners I quoted is from the church manual, which is general. And whenever you teach it, it agrees with whatever goes on in every church. So where you have the problem is how to determine what is functional in culture, in one culture from another culture. That is where we will have the problem. It's all the same everywhere, but you go, perhaps you see a Filipino wearing maybe necklace. That is why I said, who are you to say that? You can't tell me that that necklace is a wedding for your wedding commitment or marriage commitment, because in her country, it is accepted. In her country, necklace is what is used to symbolize marriage. And another person says, in my country, we use ring, finger ring, I mean. So that is where you have the problem. How about somebody also says, in my country, my culture, it is earring. So actually, this is the Seventh-day Adventist position, and you have to be bold in teaching this. You are free. Nobody has any problem with you. Is that clear, please?
Yeah, it is. Thank you. I see Auntie Debbie and Bright.
Yes,